receive and review the draft before it is final for approval, before you follow the process. So all 15 cities, this would be an agendized item on your regular council meetings for your review and feedback. You'll get updates throughout the process, so you don't just see one plan, but at the last minute, and then you have no opportunity. We don't want to do that. That's what divided us last time. And so it'll go through each process, cities, counties, the COG, FCTA, back to the supervisors for placement on the ballot. That's the way the Public Utilities Code outlines the process. That's what we're recommending. So consistent with what you've done in the past and consistent with state law. And the governing bodies, you, the elected officials, make the final decision over the plan. You approve the plan before it gets to the voters. So I'm gonna kick it to Sandra from here to just wrap up the presentation, and we're available for questions after.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Sandra Celedon, and I get the easy part because I have the picture. And so we know that we just went through a whole lot of process, right? And so what would this actually look like in practice, right? And so the kind of framework, and again, remember that some of these details, right, will need to be worked out should we choose to move forward together, is that, for example, at the community forum, let's say the first meeting, right, is about vision setting, right? It's agreed on, what is the vision that we want, that we share collectively. And the assumption and the expectation would be that first meeting, let's call it meeting number 1, would occur at different communities, right? So it wouldn't just occur in the city of Fresno, it would occur, right, in the west part of our county and the east, to make sure that we would maximize access for folks to be able to attend those meetings. And so once the feedback gets synthesized by the drafting team, that would then be reported to this body, right, an FCTA, for your feedback and input. Then that would go back to the community forum through the facilitation team to say, okay, here's what we heard in the first round. Does this match what folks have shared? And then we would have to agree on some kind of threshold, right? So for example, within the group of 10, we agreed on a 70% threshold. We said, okay, if 70% of us agree, we're gonna keep it moving so that we're not on a constant loop. So those details still need to be worked out. But assuming that the majority threshold is reached, then the vision is created, that is final, and we move on to the next topic. And so that process would be iterative in nature until we arrive at a final draft measure, where we've talked about all of the components that we wanted to talk about. And so now we would go back to the community forum, who will then, vote on that final draft, right? And it's really more about reflecting to the drafting team, does this language that we developed together actually match or reflect what you shared with us, right? And so this is, I kid around, I think most of you probably heard from me that I'm from Calwa. And so I kid around and I tell folks, you have to check my draft because I'm gonna insert, extra sidewalks for Calwa. So you gotta read it to make sure that, I'm not adding extra things. And so that's really where the process, right, the community engagement process concludes at the community forum. They're gonna say, yep, right, this draft matches everything that we've all discussed. And so now it goes to each of the 15 cities, right, where they will have an opportunity to make sure, does this also match what you have shared, right, what you've discussed throughout the last 12 to 14 months, as Veronica mentioned. It could be shorter, it could be longer, right? And it also goes to the Board of Supervisors, right? That same version then comes to the FCOG, right, to you all, and it also goes to FCTA, and then it goes back, I think we're missing a step in the graph, where it goes back to the Board of Supervisors, but then the measure then gets on the ballot, and it now converts into a campaign. And so that's how we see the process that we recommend in moving forward together to the ballot.